you so much for joining me today on my podcast to come to talk to me about all things Anne Green and your holistic therapy, I believe.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for having me on. It's so lovely to be here and to chat with you about, as you say, all things holistic therapies, all things spiritual. I'm sure we might delve into that as well.
No doubt.
And self-development. You know, the world of self-development is something that's really important to me,
Okay.
because it's somewhere that I have grown enormously.
Yeah, huge area to cover there.
Mhm.
Self-development. We
Yes.
can we can delve deep into that. So yeah, start off by, I suppose, telling me a bit about what your practice is and what your mission is really, and what are you hoping to kind of gain with your practice and your therapies.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting because my practice is called Medulla Holistic Therapies, and I'm a holistic coach and therapist. I do Reiki, reflexology, aromatherapy, and I teach Reiki as well. Medulla, the reason I came up with that name, Medulla is a Latin word for healing, and it took me quite a long while to come up with the right name because I wanted a word for healing, and I love languages, but healing, this form of healing, is healing through the mind, thinking yourself well.
Mm,
And it just that resonated with me because we're all capable of healing our physical, our mental, we're all capable of changing who we are. You know, if we're stuck in a dark place or in a limited place, because that's maybe come from our upbringing, we're able to think ourselves out of that. Um,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
that struck with me actually long before I really put the two together and
Okay.
realized that that's what I had done myself.
Okay.
I brought myself out from a place of, zero self-belief, no confidence, really shy, wouldn't say boo to a goose, to someone who is happy to chat to anyone and everyone and about all this stuff. So yeah,
Fabulous. So you've
it's
had
a
a really
long journey.
transformational time by the sounds of it.
Absolutely, yeah. People
Okay.
who knew me kind of 20 plus years ago wouldn't recognize me now.
Okay. And
Um,
so has this
mm.
journey been through kind of discovering the therapies that you now practice, that you're a practitioner of? So you started off sort of dipping into them and self-healing yourself, and then you've moved now into practicing them.
Not quite,
Okay.
actually. It was in a slightly roundabout way. So my late 30s, I had what I lovingly call a life-changing incident situation. I was bereaved. I was widowed at 37
Mm,
and went through a period of kind of refinding myself, as people do when you go through
mm,
something like that. Um, and I made new friends. And I remember having a conversation with a friend and I couldn't sleep. And she showed me a small article, yoga poses to help you sleep. So I then went on, did a yoga video, joined some yoga classes. And while I was in a yoga class, I was like, this is what I want more of.
mm.
And at that point, I was like, I want to be a yoga teacher. So I was working in corporate, I was working in construction at the time. Um, but actually, I wanted to get into this world. And then I started meeting more people. I met someone who said her work was pink and fluffy, but she became my Reiki master. And she introduced me to all things spiritual. And then obviously through her and then through other people, I just kept meeting these people. And I booked my first Reiki course with Jill before I'd ever had a Reiki session.
Okay.
But as soon as I discovered this world, I just knew it was my place. I'd finally found, kind of in my 40s, what I actually wanted to do with my
Mm.
life.
Yeah, fabulous.
It was like I'd come home, I guess.
Yeah, like an awakening. I think I've heard that quite a
Yes.
lot. I think around women around their 40s tend to turn a corner. We find a different direction.
Yeah.
There's quite a
Yeah.
common theme that I've heard. So that
Yes.
you were speaking about the yoga you found. So what was it do you think that you found that you wanted more of? Beyond the yoga poses, there must be something there
Yeah.
that's sort of
Um,
resonates.
so although I started yoga with a video, and obviously there was none of the spiritual side of yoga within that video. When you're in a yoga pose, there is that calm that comes.
Mm,
And then, of course, once I got to a class and the teacher started taking us down the meditation route, she was very gentle. And I think her energy, and I didn't know what that was, but I think it was that energy. that I wanted.
Mm.
I know it now, I recognize it now as the energy, but I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, it's almost like a peace, like a stillness, isn't it? I think that we're
Yes,
lacking generally, in society. There's this,
yes,
it's not easy
yes,
to be still in society, is it?
certainly not. No, there's
So
far too much going on. You've got, things bombarding you at every
yeah,
angle.
yeah.
But as well as the peace, there was oh, zest for life is the wrong phrase, but a vibration, I
Mm,
guess. It's that aliveness
yeah,
as well as the peace
yeah.
that comes, which I mean, I now recognize it comes from getting in to know your true self. That's a phrase we use in Reiki all the time.
Okay.
Um, coming in to find your true self. And once you get to know your true self and you begin to heal your true self, then you can start to heal others,
Okay. Yeah,
which
of
is why
course.
Reiki 1 is all about finding yourself. It's all about self Reiki, and then you work on working with others as well.
Okay.
But
So yeah,
yeah,
I'm not, I don't know too much about Reiki, interestingly. So
okay.
in
Mm,
layman's terms, tell me a bit about what Reiki is and how you work with it.
okay. So the way I describe it varies from time to time, but actually it's the transference of the universal life force energy.
Hmm.
You're probably aware of chi energy.
Hmm.
Probably heard of chi energy.
Yeah, yeah.
Ki is the Japanese word for the same thing.
Okay.
Chi comes from China and Ki comes from Reiki. Reiki is a Japanese practice. It's often known as hands-on healing. So we lay our hands very gently, and we have this energy running through us, as everybody does. But it's what makes the trees and the plants grow. It's in the air around us. And so I bring in, as a practitioner, I bring in that energy through me, out through my hands, and into the person. For the most part, most people just feel really relaxed. It can come up with all other kinds of things as well. People can see lights and colors, they can feel sensations, they can have um, quite big shifts as the energy blocks release. But on the whole, it's a sense of calm and peace that allows somebody to go in and their true self to begin to heal them.
Right. Okay.
Does that
Yeah,
make some
yeah, yeah,
sense?
absolutely. So how long would a session typically last then? Or would people have to come to you maybe for a series of sessions to feel any impact really in terms of
Mhm.
shifting energies and healing?
That's really interesting because it again that can vary. So I offer 1 hour session or an hour and a half session. Some people really like the length of time because they find they go deeper. Um, but you can also do it really quickly. So I volunteer at the what used to be the Bedford Daycare Hospice. We now merged with Keach, and it's the Living Well Centre. And I go and volunteer at the cancer support group, and I do kind of 10 to 20 minutes for patients there.
Okay.
So
Right.
it can be really short, and even in that time, they can have that deep sense of relaxation to support them through their treatment, maybe in the early stages of diagnosis, maybe coming out the other side and they're on long-term medication and they're having effects. And they will often say to me as they come back round, that is the most relaxed I've ever felt.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite
Mm.
powerful, isn't it, for people that are
It
in that
is really powerful.
situation in life?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
definitely.
Yes, yes. And people will often try it because they've never heard of it, don't know anything about it, and well, yeah, I'll give it a go. And that's fine. I don't mind. I don't mind how they try, as long as they're open to it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, if you're not open, I can often feel a resistance and you're not going to get the best out of it. So I
Mm.
just ask that people are open and just allow whatever's going to happen to happen.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think
Mm.
that's what I see from a lot of healing modalities. People need to be ready, don't they, to make shifts and change in their life, and I don't think
They
that
do.
that can be done unless they're ready and open to that shift and change. So
Yes,
yeah,
definitely,
much the
definitely.
same.
I do find that people perhaps come newly and don't know much about Reiki. They've maybe heard from a friend that it's really nice,
Mm,
and they don't realize what it can do. They don't appreciate that it can help with these shifts and changes.
mm,
And once I perhaps don't explain that initially, but then by the end of the session, and they go, "Oh, I felt, a tingling here, or I felt a release here, or I sighed at this point." And then we start talking about release and we talk about the chakras, maybe not with everyone, but sometimes we talk about the chakras. We talk about the energy blocks in the body, which are the emotions that are held deep within us.
mm.
Sometimes they're right back from childhood.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could just be a difficult conversation that we had earlier that day,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
can release that and then look at ways that they can move forward with that,
Think we're full of
which
so
is just
many
lovely.
stresses, aren't we? Yeah, we look at
We are.
deep,
We are.
deep inner wounds of childhood, and like you say, they could just be
Mm,
something that happened this morning, but the body holds so much stress from so many things. I think it's really
yes,
important to find ways
yes,
to help us relieve and soothe, isn't it?
definitely.
Definitely. So so
Yes, yes,
uh,
and layers of stress.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. No, I was just
Yeah,
going to
I
say,
often find that, yeah, layers of stress
mm,
are something I talk about a lot because people say, well, I don't feel stressed. And then I might look at their feet or I might feel the energy in the Reiki. And what we find is that whilst there's no one big overall stress in their life, they might have lots of layers. You
mm,
know, the kids are playing up and there's maybe a bit of financial stress and work is difficult and there's a relationship issue and parents and this and that and that and that. And suddenly it's this massive stress pile that they weren't even aware of.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. They teach us a lot about that in the corporate world, I think in the wellness training, etc. But I mean, that doesn't scratch the
Mm,
surface of what we can achieve with holistic
yeah.
healings and therapies. You mentioned that you've come from the corporate world, haven't you, and moved over into
Yes,
to this kind of work now. So tell us a bit about that
yes.
story.
Okay, so that's so I mentioned construction earlier.
Mm,
Actually before that I worked in healthcare. So I
okay.
started as a Saturday, I had a Saturday job in Boots and actually stayed there, trained as a dispenser.
Oh,
So I've got
okay.
that background in medicine. And then I worked in GP surgeries, dispensing, and in practice management. So kind of I always felt that kind of healthcare and helping people was an area.
Mm,
Through redundancy and the universe working the way the universe does beautifully, I ended up in construction, which I think I was there for about 13 years. Office manager, I got into business development. And actually, that was whilst the role really was completely against my values, I learned
yeah.
so much about running a business, so marketing and building a
Oh,
website and all that kind of stuff,
handy.
which has helped me now.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sure.
So it's all skills. I was there for a reason.
Mm,
And I'm a massive believer that we are where we are for a reason. Everything that happens to us happens for a
mm,
reason. And then I'd given myself, as I started to develop Reiki first of all, and then started to learn reflexology. And I gave myself a 5-year plan to get out of my corporate job.
okay.
2.5 years in, it was getting so hard. I was struggling so much with the ethics in construction at that time and with the company that I worked with. Um, and I had a conversation with a friend who was going for cancer treatment, and she said to me, "And life is too short to not be happy."
Mm,
And I went, "You're right."
mm,
Went home, wrote my resignation letter, was out in a
mm.
month.
Well, wow.
Never been so broke,
That's a
but never been so
decision.
happy.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it was. I know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was almost like felt like a shove from the universe. I could
Yes.
almost feel that kind of physical shove.
It was your
And it
time.
was
Yeah,
definitely my thing. It
yeah.
was my time. Yes. Yeah. And I've never looked back ever.
Fabulous.
Um, yeah, just I love what I do. Absolutely love what I do.
Yeah, well, let that be a
Mhm.
beacon of light that are for the others that are
Yeah.
slaving away at the offices. I've been there. I left a corporate job in education and maybe 6 months ago now, and yeah,
Right.
thing just
Well
I
done, you.
couldn't sit at the desk anymore. I just couldn't.
No.
It was killing my
No.
soul. I just it really
Yes.
literally was. I felt like I was withering away. So I think
Yes.
it's some
Yes.
I just some people just can't endure that. I think.
No.
No.
No. I think it's maybe a sensitivity that we have, or maybe because deep down our inner self knows that the universe has a bigger plan for
Mm,
us. Um, and when we fight it, and I did fight it, well, say I fought it for a while, I didn't really know at that stage, but you talked about being kind of stifled there. But
mm,
actually, if we go beyond that, then it gets into physical issues, and people end up
mm.
with these physical issues because they don't make the big changes
Yeah,
that
yeah.
really would help them so much.
Yeah,
and take
yeah.
them into such a different place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, that's I was suffering with back because I was sitting at a desk.
yeah,
My eyesight,
yeah,
my back, my legs. I
likewise.
thought that this is just crushing me. The sitting at the desk for 8 hours a day. We're not supposed to be doing that. I don't believe we're
No, we're
supposed to
not.
be doing that. It's not good for our
No,
body,
I
is it?
don't either. No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. And yes, we all spend hours at a computer still
Mm,
because, we're doing this. There's I want to share a presence with my audience, with
mm.
my beautiful clients, and I want to talk to them. So that's done by a newsletter. But I can get up and I can walk around,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
get
yeah.
outside and enjoy the sunshine.
There's something to be
Um,
said for being able to, I think, from that experience, the difference now is when we're in an office and we're being managed and we have to sit there for the paycheck and we have to be still, and
mm,
there's a difference in now, if we have the freedom to just get up and move around, something happens, doesn't it, with the mind. It's the We don't feel the
yes,
pressure as much, so we're able to listen to our body more, and like you say, get up and move around, take 2 hours if we need 2 hours. We have that
yes,
freedom, don't we don't have that when we're
definitely.
contracted and managed in an office. It's quite different.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Mm,
actually that's part of the healing process is listening to the body exactly as you say there, and
mm,
listening to what the body needs. Because if we are made to sit there and we're not feeling 100%, whether that's emotional or whether we're tired, whether it's, maybe it's the time of the month and our energy levels are low, but
mm,
we're made to sit there and do the work, we're ineffective. Whereas actually, if we took ourselves off and did something else, last week was an amazing funny question. I had a big long list of stuff to do, and I was absolutely shattered. I'd had a busy week. It was coming up to the new moon. My energy was really low, and I thought I could sit here and push through and achieve nothing.
mm,
But actually, I took myself off. I had a couple of hours nap, and when I came back later, I was just able to kind of work through and tick, tick, tick through my list.
mm.
You can't do that in an office.
No, no. I
So I'm
think,
really grateful that I've been able to kind of
mm,
find something that allows me to do that.
yeah, I think they do try with, from what I
Okay.
experience with wellness packages, and they have, kind of mindfulness sessions, and
Mm,
I think they are trying to incorporate alternative views to stress relief, but it just doesn't
yes.
feel like it's ever going to be enough. It really
No,
doesn't.
no, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And it depends on the industry that you work in and the company
Mm,
that you work for.
yeah, yeah,
Construction
absolutely.
was very masculine, and I started leading a mindfulness group at my last company.
Mm,
And I got some comment about, oh, well, I just fell asleep and then felt rubbish this afternoon.
oh,
And that was it. It's like,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you haven't given it a go. But that just showed, for some people, that is their journey.
yeah.
And
Mm,
I've learned to respect that, not everyone's journey is this freedom, and not everyone's journey is to heal. Because actually, some people, this sounds, I always think it sounds rather cruel, but actually, some people are not meant to change. That is their journey.
yeah,
There'll be lessons they'll learn somewhere, um, and they're not meant to change and live in a more free way. Or maybe they don't get to know what their real values are. That was transformational, actually, talking about values. When I did an exercise to discover what my real values were. Have you ever done that exercise?
no, I've seen them, but it's not something
Mm.
I've actually actively
Oh,
done. Yeah,
right. Worth trying.
yeah, yeah,
Definitely worth
yeah.
trying. I've done it 2 or 3 times and suddenly realized why I do the things I do. When kindness is one of my biggest values, it doesn't matter when somebody says, "Oh, Anne, you're too kind." No, sorry, I'm not. That's just a value of mine.
Okay.
That's the way I am. Yeah.
Mm,
That used to hurt me. People said to me, "Oh, Anne, you're too kind. You're too nice." And now I understand why, and I'm quite proud of that, actually.
yeah, yeah. Oh, of course, if it's something we highly value, we want to, yeah, we
Mhm.
want to be that, don't we? We want to
Yeah. Yeah.
personify that. So that's natural, I
Yes.
think.
But if society, if it's not seen as normal in society,
Mm,
so overkindness is not seen. in a favorable light in society, in modern society.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, in
And
our
so it's frowned
culture,
on
yeah,
in
I
our
think,
culture. Exactly.
yeah.
And so people try and hide that. People squash their own values, they
Mm.
squash their personality rather than living to their values.
Yeah, it's a
And
shame.
that's it is a shame.
Mm.
It is a shame. And that's what I'm trying to share with people, and that's where I'm trying to help people so that
Yes.
they can grow and be happy.
Yeah, that's part of
Mm.
discovering, like you were saying about the inner, knowing the inner self, isn't it? It's becoming aware,
Yes.
self-aware. Who am I? A lot of people
Yes,
don't ever really ask themselves, who am I? What are my values?
exactly. Exactly. They don't. They don't.
Mm,
And actually, if sometimes if you read something or it comes up in conversation, who are you? Most people, no, not most people, a lot of people have no idea.
mm,
And that often comes from childhood, where we pick up from our views, the views of our parents and the community maybe, and the environment that we live in, our teachers, and we conform to everybody else's views. I know I was very much like that. I didn't know who I was
mm.
till probably the last 15 years was when I finally worked out who I am.
So what's
And that
given
was
you the courage to be able to step into who you are then, do you think? What's been that drive? Has it been a case of sort of life forcing you
hmm,
into it, do you think? Or
um I think it's no, I well, partly I suppose with the big with that, with the bereavement that I had, that
mm,
was partly it.
okay.
But I think also from there, the people that I've met, and obviously self-development since that point has been massive for me. And I've done lots of courses and workshops and things, and each time I learn something new. And each time I peel back another layer of my onion to
Yeah.
discover who I am. And of course, once that starts, then you get curious. And then I want to know who I am. And I see, and I start to feel a little more free each time. I'm like, well, there's got to be more.
Yeah.
And then I keep going, and then I keep going. Or something else raises its head that might trigger me. So it
Mm.
might make me feel uncomfortable. I'm trying desperately to think of an example and I can't. But things do trigger us. And you
Yes.
think, well, why is that triggering? Well, it's triggering because there's a lesson to be learned. And so you go on that exploration as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so no one thing exactly, but a series of things, I think.
Okay.
And also I learn when I teach. So when I teach Reiki, and I'm seeing my students going through their own transformation. When I work with my clients in their transformation, particularly as I've got more into the coaching side of it,
Mm.
and I'm seeing these transformations, of course, that all reflects back at me. And I'm learning all the time too. We never
Yeah.
stop learning, do we?
No, it's
We're
one
always,
long journey, isn't it, of learning and understanding
yeah,
and exploring, and it's fantastic, isn't it, that
it
we
is.
can all connect
Absolutely is.
and do this. So yeah.
Yes, yes. And an element there of gratitude as well.
Mm.
When we can be, just the way you've described it, when we can be accepting that this is a journey and that we're not static and we can keep learning. In fact, if we can be grateful for that, actually, then more comes to us. Because I'm a big believer that the more gratitude we show, the more the universe will give us. But then we can grow and have more to be grateful for, which is just, I think that's quite, again, it's one of those transformational things that just lights you up and makes you want to go and explore a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So do you
Mm.
think, I mean, thinking about transformation, just going back to
Mm,
women in, we were talking earlier about perimenopause, weren't we? And
mm,
the
yes. Oh, the joys.
trials and tribulations. So your client base, do you tend to find you get more females come to you for
Mm.
these therapies, or do you find a balance of men and women?
Mainly women, but there are
Mm,
men.
mm,
It kind of goes in cycles, I suppose.
mm,
I'm trying to think. What is it? Yeah, I probably maybe 10% of my clients currently are men.
okay.
But sometimes that'll be more, sometimes that'll dwindle. And
Yeah.
yeah. And they often come from recommendations,
Okay.
interestingly. Quite
Mm,
often it's the husband or partner of an existing client. uh, but not always, not always.
Yeah.
At the hospice, it's probably an equal balance, actually.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I always find it when I talk to people that are working with these therapies that it tends to be a stronger female
mm,
clientele, and I just wonder. I don't know. I'm just curious what the
mm,
difference is and why this kind of thing draws more women. Perhaps because we have more, I don't know, emotional journeys than men. The
yeah,
perimenopause, the
that's a nice way of
menopause.
putting it. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. Yes, I think that's right. Emotional journeys, but also more transformations.
Mm,
As
yes.
at puberty, we transform
Mm,
so much, and then again at menopause, it's
mm,
again a big transformation. And if we've had children, as the children start to grow up and leave home and leave us more, again, there's a big transformation there. And and I think there's some element of this we feel we've got more time, we've got more freedom, we want to explore and suddenly do things for ourselves.
yeah.
My understanding is with menopause, having spoken, I've got a friend who's a menopause, I was going to say specialist, she's a menopause mindset specialist.
Okay.
And she tells us that actually one of the effects of the estrogen dropping is the nurture that we have as women, the nurturing that we have as women, that nurturing element to look after everyone. As the estrogen drops, so does that nurturing element.
Oh, interesting. I
So
didn't know
we're,
that.
yeah, and I'd never realized that. And so as we stop needing to worry about everybody else, we suddenly start to remember we are there and that actually we need a bit of attention. And then we start exploring things and then we might find ways to grow, ways that interest us. And often then that can be at a block with the rest of the family. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah,
But yes,
yeah.
I think that's why women go through these transformations and growth. Also, maybe I'm being rather stereotypical. I think women can be more open to change and growth.
Mm,
That's my experience. There's no science in that at all. That is my
mm,
experience. Seem to be more open to to grow and develop and understand themselves and be the best person rather than just accepting this is who I am and this is my lot.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think
Um,
we're more inclined to go inwards as well, aren't we? As women, naturally, I
yes.
think we're
Yeah.
far more inward focused. It's just that's part of
Hmm.
being feminine, isn't it? It's the female, it's
Yeah, I
the
guess so.
masculine tends to be a bit more out there and a bit more outreaching and
Yes.
yeah, so just probably a difference in the energies of masculine and feminine,
Yeah,
maybe.
I think so. I think so. Um, and and I think maybe in today's age and the culture that we have today, but also the knowledge that we have, because people are being more outspoken
Mm,
about the menopause and about the fact that actually once you get to 40, 45, 50, you don't have to, that isn't the end of life. You can actually then go on and get another life. A lot of women from the age of 40 are becoming entrepreneurs
mm,
because they're wanting to do things for themselves that they've not been able to do, and they're wanting to do things their way.
mm.
And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
passionate about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like a time of a real liberation. As you were talking there, I just kept
Mhm.
thinking, it all sounds very liberating, doesn't it?
Yes, yes, yes. But I
Yeah.
can't imagine certainly not, my mum and her generation and my grandparents, you
Mm,
know, I can't imagine those kind of conversations happening. We get to 50 and oh, now we're going to take another turn in life and we're going
mm,
to do something completely new. They got to that age of, well, we'll just, that's it now.
yeah.
We've done our job, we've raised our kids, and we'll just stay as we are.
Yeah, yeah. They never had
Um,
that
and
opportunity, did they?
they
Mm,
didn't, definitely not. Though that's a big thing. But I wonder also, there's um there's a lot of talk of the energy in the universe shifting
mm,
towards ascension. I listen to bits and pieces. I don't retain all this knowledge, but there's lots of talk of the growth of people and people becoming awakened.
yes.
And I think this is. our time. We are in a time where people can be awakened, but maybe that wasn't happening before. So thinking about our parents and our grandparents'
Perhaps, yeah.
generation, and I know I've had conversations with peers and with my cousin particularly, and actually how our parents didn't evolve emotionally
No.
the way we have. They didn't think to think differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Um,
does.
and I'm not saying, maybe that's not the same in every family. Maybe that was just our family. But I think, in the conversations I've had with
Mm,
other people, I
me
think
too.
it's
Yeah,
it's
me
fairly
too.
universal.
It was always a very rare conversation that I'd have with people that would say that their parents were quite sort of, I suppose we'd use the word liberal. You know, I
Mm.
remember being I remember being a teenager and the cool parents were always the hippie parents, but there weren't many of them. The ones that
No,
were free
no, that was,
thinkers.
oh,
But yeah, they were
yes,
very few and far between. So
yes,
it's yeah, we're definitely living in an interesting time, aren't we? There's definitely
we
something
are.
happening with consciousness and
Yes,
there is a real gratitude. I feel a real gratitude to be alive at this time because I can see
yeah,
so
me
much
too.
shift. I mean, it's just in the
Yeah,
amount of people that are interested in holistic therapy, for example.
mm,
How else can we heal
definitely,
ourselves? How else can we feel better? We don't have to
yes,
follow the mainstream. Oh, let's look at other
exactly.
ways, and that in
Yeah,
itself is evidence. I
it's
think that
huge. Yes,
we're expanding, aren't we?
yes, yes. I think you're right. And I have a lot of people that come to me. Yes, you get some who go, I've got nothing else to lose. I don't know where else to go. But
Mm,
actually, I've got a lot of people who say, something's not quite right. I don't want to just go to the doctor and get pills. I don't just want to pop a pill for it or put a sticking plaster on. I want to get to the bottom of it and find out what's really going
mm,
on. And it's like, yes, this is it. This is what we can do as as healers, as therapists, in whatever modality we use. And actually the things that we see in the feet and in the body. And once you tell these back to people and they go, yes, that makes sense. I didn't realize it, but it really makes sense. And now I can do something with that. They feel empowered
yes,
because they
yes.
start to understand themselves better.
Yeah, that is very empowering. So where do you
Mm,
stand with your work? Just a question I have
mm,
really, because you mentioned you worked in pharmaceuticals as well. So
mm.
where do you stand with the kind of crossover, the modern kind of medicine, and then the holistic therapies? How do you weave the two? How do you feel about that?
Mm. And I definitely believe there is a place for conventional or modern medicine.
Mm,
Um, I suppose particularly being at the Living Well Centre, and I see it, on a weekly basis.
yeah,
I,
you have to
I'm trying to
choose.
describe. So yeah, there is a place for it,
Yes.
but at the same time, complementary therapy or holistic therapy can do two things. One, it can work hand in hand to support modern medicine,
Okay.
for people that need it,
Mm,
that really need it, um, then it can support modern medicine. So I'm talking here from my experience. So people going through cancer treatment,
mm,
some of those treatments are quite brutal. They're quite
mm,
harsh on the body
okay.
and on the mind.
Mm,
But actually the complementary therapies can support them through that. It can ease the mind, it can comfort the body, it can soothe some of the symptoms from these quite harsh medicines.
mm-hmm.
The other thing that it can do is, I think, complementary therapy or holistic therapies can show us another way that we could try this first. You know, for instance, if I get a headache, I will try all the things that I know first. So I will reach probably first for the lavender oil, then maybe peppermint essential oil, and then I'll do some reflexology, or maybe at the same time do some reflexology either on my thumb or on my big toe. And then I'll get out, make sure I've had a big glass of water, maybe get some fresh air. If that doesn't work, then I'll take some paracetamol.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds very sensible.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's the way I do it. There is a place for medicine and
Mm.
pharma.
Yeah.
Don't get me started about big pharma and the
No,
control it has on.
that's another podcast.
We work. That is a whole other podcast, and I'm not an expert in it. But yeah,
Mm.
but there is a place for pharma because it can do amazing things.
Of course, yeah, yeah.
Because there are things that, as a holistic therapist, we're not allowed to claim, and I would never claim that we can heal and cure. Sorry,
Mm,
we can never claim that we can cure.
hmm.
Healing is very different to curing.
Mm. Okay. Tell
Um,
me the difference there
um,
then, so that we understand.
so, in my interpretation,
Hmm.
curing is the condition goes away.
Okay.
Yeah. So, cancer, for example, is gone. Somebody
Okay.
goes into remission. They're healed of it. Sorry, they're cured of it. It's gone. Healing can be that, but it can also be maybe it allows somebody to accept that they have a condition that they're going to have to deal with
Uh,
and live with, to allow them to live within their best ability with that condition. Some
mm,
conditions are life-changing, and that could be injury as well as health conditions. So we can't cure some injuries, but actually we could help people to live within that, and acceptance is a massive part of that.
mm,
Um, the other element is if the condition deteriorates and becomes life-threatening, it can again help with um, healing can help again with acceptance of that journey, but also smooth that journey. And I suppose acceptance that life is coming to an end will make that a smoother journey anyway. And holistic therapy can definitely help with that, smoothing that journey, making it more
mm,
comfortable, making the person more peaceful. And so yeah, so that's where I see the differences are.
mm,
It's healing is supporting and acceptance and understanding, and maybe making changes. So some of that acceptance might be, well, actually, I accept that if I eat dairy or sugar or gluten, I'm going to be ill.
mm,
I accept that if I can eliminate those from my diet, I'm going to be well. So you're not
mm.
curing the condition, but that's a form of healing.
You're starting,
Accepting that.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
taking a step on to a healing journey. It's that first step,
yeah,
isn't it, that can open up,
yeah,
I suppose, to a whole new world, a whole new
exactly.
existence.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
fascinating. Thank you. Yeah, that's an
yeah.
interesting perspective.
Is that
Yeah.
yes? It's quite it's quite a broad one that healing,
Mm.
and I know it's something I always bring up when I'm teaching Reiki. Um, and we do go down some really interesting conversations in that,
I bet.
that we talk about, healing is not curing
Okay,
and where
yeah.
that takes us. But yeah, so I hope that kind of explains what I see as the difference. Other people might have different interpretation.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's
That's what I
fascinating.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
So,
Brilliant.
yeah. So alongside your Reiki, you also do reflexology, you were saying. So you incorporate
Mm,
that with your
yes.
practice as well. Now that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Reflexology, that's fascinating. So do you
Yes. Have you had it yourself?
I have, yes. Yeah, I've had a
Is
few
it
treatments,
gorgeous?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with having my feet played with anyway. So
Mm,
any excuse for
wonderful.
for some reflexology.
Oh, I love that.
But so do you weave the two together when you work, or do you tend to kind of see people from one or the other?
Tends to be one or the other.
Okay.
Although I do offer a combined session. We call it
Mm.
soul to soul.
Oh,
Obviously,
nice.
yeah, soul to soul. So I always start off with Reiki and then kind of do half Reiki and half reflexology. And even if I'm doing a reflexology treatment, when I kind of come down at the end, I always end with a little Reiki because I find that the way Reiki is, you when you live in Reiki, you tend to exude it anyway. So it just kind of pours from you.
Mm.
And so they're getting a dose of Reiki when they're having reflexology. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I do tend to do them separately. But reflexology is fascinating. What you can see in the feet, what you can help people to understand
Mm.
about themselves is quite mind-blowing, actually. It astounds me every time,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
now.
Yeah, it is
I'm what,
powerful
8 years
stuff.
into this?
Yeah, that from the
Mm,
experience I've had with it. Um, reflexologist, which is a
reflexologist. Yes.
ist,
Reflexologist. Yes. Yeah.
was working around as she was working around sort of chest and lung area, and little things like
Mm,
I'd cough or I'd need to clear my throat, or as she was working around the
wonderful.
body, these things were happening in my body. And I
Yes,
find it's just so subtly powerful,
it is.
as are many of these healing modalities. They're very subtle but
Yes.
powerful, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for a lot of people think you're just giving them a foot massage,
Mm,
but you're working that whole body.
mm,
And if you're massaging that body, you're bringing in extra blood flow and nourishment into the body. You're helping to drain the lymph and clear the toxins
mm,
away. So there's got to be some shifts.
yeah.
Um, and I love it when I see people on a regular basis. And I have a lot of people who come maybe monthly, 6 weekly, something like that. They come really regularly, and we can map the changes within their body, and we can see, um for example, after Christmas is always the gut always looks stressed after
Okay.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if they've suddenly decided to eat more healthily, or they've changed something in their diet, it'll look like stress, but we know it's because they've made a
Mm,
change. And you can see these changes within the feet,
yeah.
and help work that through with the body, so that the body and the mind begin to work together, because obviously the body mind connection is huge. And
Yeah.
often we find in the feet, if it isn't a physical symptom, that there might be, it's often then an emotional symptom that
Mm,
is showing in the feet, that hasn't quite come out as a physical symptom in the body. So if we can pick that up and they can work with that, then
mm,
of course they can, you know, eliminate that need for the body to show it,
mm,
which is what we're all trying to do, isn't it?
yeah.
None of us want it to come out as a physical symptom.
No.
So if we
No,
can
no.
catch that early.
Yeah, there's all that
Um,
energy trapped. Interesting story, just
mm,
feel moved to tell you. So I've had
lovely.
a few reflexology sessions over the years. The first one I had, I tend to have psychic episodes, or my
Oh,
reflexologist, she had a psychic episode. So she was
right.
she was working on me, and she came to a point, and she afterwards she told me, she didn't tell me during,
Hmm,
but she'd had
yes.
a point of grief, and she'd
Mm,
seen a black dog, and
right.
me as a small child grieving. I didn't know this
Yes.
woman, I knew her vaguely, but she knew nothing about me.
Right.
And then
Yes. Yeah.
she she told me afterwards that she'd hit a grief block or something with my feet,
Oh, yeah.
and she'd seen
Yeah.
this black dog and I was a child, and yeah, I had a black dog when I was a child, and he got taken away, and there must have been this lump of grief that
Wow.
where I'd lost this dog,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's an energy channel she must have found, or I'm not sure, I don't know what the terminology is, but it's fascinating that
No.
she'd seen that, she'd found
Yes.
that. And
Yeah.
recently, having sessions, I tend to have a lot of sort of psychic visions, and not strange visions, because
Mm.
nothing's really strange for me, but
No, no,
my
no.
I meet all of these animals, and my visions get really
Mm.
strong and really clear. I have got kind of
Yes.
sort of artistic, I've got a very um yeah, visual inner
Mm.
world, pictures and
Yes. Yes.
colors, and that gets
Oh,
really
beautiful.
enhanced, and I meet all sorts of spirit animal type things. I'm not quite sure,
Yes.
but I've decided I'm going to start painting them, because they,
Oh,
they come
wonderful.
to me.
Yes, because it needs to come out. You're
Mm,
seeing them for a reason,
yeah,
and they'll
yeah,
mean something. And whether you don't know the meaning of it there and
yeah,
then, the meaning will become apparent at some
yeah.
point.
So I have this psychic energy must
Wonderful.
activate in me when people do reflexology on me. So interesting, huh?
Wonderful. Yes, yes. I've not had that. Well, I say that I do. There's sometimes I can be working over the feet, and I just get this sense. So I wouldn't call myself psychic in any way, shape, or form until I do Reiki.
Okay.
And
Mm,
then I might have what you're describing as the psychic episode. And I love that phrase. I think
mm.
that's something I'm going to use, because I've
Don't
never
don't
known how to
mistake it
describe
with
it.
psychotic episode, though.
No, no, no,
No,
no, don't want one of
no,
those.
we don't want one of those.
Don't want one of those. No, no, no. But I'm able to, yeah, I see or I feel. I think I'm more
Mm,
clairsentient than clairvisual.
mm,
So I just get a feeling and a sense, and I'll sometimes get it in the feet as well. And
interesting.
then when we confer at the end and I share, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Or they don't, and they might come back to me later and they'll say, made so much sense. I understand why that
Mm.
came up for me now. And that's it. And then if we can work through and show them how to begin to clear that, how to work it, how they might choose to make some changes to stop it progressing. You know,
Okay.
if it's a block or if it's the start of something physical, maybe
Mm.
we can work with that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's working with that
mm,
intuition, isn't it? It's feeling our way
yeah,
through things and staying connected to the messages we receive, I suppose, when you're
yes,
working.
yes,
And when
yes,
yeah, and when we're strong in our own sense of who we are and what we trust what we're receiving, then that can be powerful,
yes.
can't it?
It can. And trust is a big thing.
Mm,
For a long time, I didn't trust these messages because I
mm,
wasn't sure if it was me, was it just my mind working overdrive or was it actually happening? And then, talking to
mm,
people and doing various seminars and whatever, or not seminars, but working with various people, I learned to ask, um, is this real? Is this for the person?
mm.
And then I'd get another sign and then I'd know. And now I'm beginning to pick up, say beginning to, I've been doing it a long while. I still have this doubt, like, really? What does that mean? And so I'll say to them, look, this is just going to sound cookie, but I had this, this, and this. Does it mean anything to you? And 9 times out of 10, it does.
Yeah, yeah, they'll pick
Yeah.
up on it, they'll get
And that
something
blows me
from it.
away. That blows me away. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, must be
Um,
rewarding. It must feel quite rewarding.
oh, hugely, hugely, yes. Yeah.
Fabulous.
And from that, I guess the working to take these things forward, um, suppose that's where the coaching came out of because I could see the way of helping people
Mm,
um, from my own transformation,
okay.
and then wanted to develop that a bit further.
Yeah, yeah. So if somebody
Um,
came to you wanting a coaching package, then what is it that you'd
mm,
offer? How would that look? What would they expect to draw from the experience?
mm. So I don't offer one-to-one coaching per se. I have an online resource portal
Oh, okay.
with
Yeah.
yeah with a series of there's videos and guided meditations and journaling prompts and exercises that work with people with all the things that I found myself that I needed to change, but it's all the things that I see in my clients as well.
Mm,
But it's in a support group where it's private group, obviously, but it's somewhere that I can be there to support them through it and they can
uh,
ask questions and I can work with them and we do live Q&As. And it's just this beautiful environment where people feel supported and can work through it at their own pace.
mm,
So sometimes these things can feel quite overwhelming. Oh my goodness, I've got this whole load of work to do. And it's not like that at all. It's,
okay.
got 10 minutes, I'll just go and grab the next video.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
Okay.
it's working with to help people come from that place of lack of self-belief, from the constant mind chatter that keeps them in a very limited place. The shoulds, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I can't do this. Oh my goodness, there's no way I can do that. I'm not good enough to do that. All those things that have come usually from those beliefs as children
Hmm.
that we inherit, sit there and be quiet. Therefore, you don't you grow up without having a voice.
Mm,
You can't do this, you can't do that. Don't do this, don't do that. And so you grow up thinking you can't. And actually learning to recognize those and then reframe them and then learning some tools and things that will help you to keep going and just find a confidence. And the confidence might be it might be to enable you to go and do something big and bold, like changing a job or leaving a
yeah.
relationship or moving house. But it could be enough to just say, I've now got the confidence to put some boundaries in place.
Yeah, that's big. That's a big one for some people, isn't it?
It is,
Mm,
it is,
mm,
and the boundary could only be a small boundary, but actually putting that boundary in place in the first place is big. But
yes.
imagine being able to come from a place where you never thought you could, where the word boundaries frightens you to death,
Yeah.
and then suddenly you're able to start putting them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just think that's so powerful. And that's where I came from. That was my journey. And mine took a long time and lots of windy roads. And I've tried to condense it to make so that people don't have to do that. They don't have to go through this whole life journey
Get
to
direct
get there.
paths, yeah, direct
Yes.
pathways.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you could offer a bit of a community there then with your coaching. Do you find that there's,
Mm,
if people are, yeah, coming online and into Q&As, do you find there's a community forming, and is there there's impact of that
yes.
as well with women particularly coming together, isn't there? There's power
Yes.
in
Yes, absolutely. Initially you can see the reservation of people, are they going to judge me? But when they
yeah.
realize there's no judgment, and
Mm,
I'm very, I'm a very strong advocate of no judgment, and I
mhm,
think that comes from my own beliefs as a child and the way,
yeah.
my own childhood, actually encouraging people to share. And when they realize there's support there,
Mm,
the things that come out, and it's just beautiful. It's just
yeah,
really
yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
Um, and I love it when women support women,
Mm.
because when we as women support other women, we do it in a very different way.
It's very special, isn't it?
It is
Definitely.
very special.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
With no
Yeah.
judgment and with just that coming together. There's a real rise, isn't there? I think in women's circles popping up, however they look. I
Yes.
run a singing circle. I know there's drum
Mm,
circles. There's just women's circles. I think that
yes.
as we would have gathered in days gone by, we've
Yes.
lost that communal circle, and I think it
Yes.
feels like there's a revival. We're recognizing we need
Yeah.
to come together again, and that's exciting.
Yes. Yes.
Mm,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was listening to something this morning, and again they were talking about women's circles,
mm,
and but again how people when they first come in, there's that judgment because there's a fear.
mm,
And that could be maybe an ancestral fear or a karmic fear where women have been judged. But when they realize there's this love and it's their own blocks, and when they can get past that, the love is there to support them.
yes.
And we did go through a period of history where it was frowned upon to have um, women's circles,
Mm,
or demeaned. They were Tupperware parties or coffee mornings.
yeah.
And it was said in such a demeaning way that
Yes. Yeah.
maybe the more sensitive among us wouldn't have put our toes in them,
Yes.
wouldn't have gone into those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I don't know
there's
how you feel.
yeah, yeah. I do. I feel that there was a, again, another podcast. There's a deliberate
Mm,
dumbing down of the feminine
yeah,
there, and to sort of
very much.
reduce and ridicule that kind of women coming together. But it's definitely changing.
Yes.
I think it really is.
Yeah.
People are really
Yeah.
seeing now the need to come together, especially
Mm,
after the last 5 weird years that we've had. It's been a very
yes.
strange time
Yes.
to be alive, and I think
Yeah.
in some ways it's getting weirder, but
Yeah.
it's really time to come back together. And I think each podcast that I do, interestingly enough, this tends to be a theme, this recognition that we
Ah.
need to all come back together. Maybe it's something in me that's sort of coming out there, but yeah,
Mm,
that the reunion of that feminine energy, yeah, that reunion,
yes.
coming together,
Yes.
support and strengthening, um
Yes.
not in a bash the patriarchy way, because that's not what it's
No.
about. It's very
No,
much
it's not.
just rediscovering ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And
Mm,
enabling and helping each other to find, for to help each other to find their true self, to find
mm,
their inner self. For
yeah,
those who are maybe newer on their journey and haven't yet discovered who they are and what their values are,
yeah, yeah,
to be supported to find those. That's so empowering. It's
mm,
empowering for the person who's discovering, but also for the person who's helping
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
absolutely.
Um, and interesting, you're saying that this is reflecting what you're feeling yourself,
Mm.
because for a long while now I've been thinking, oh, do you know, I'd really like to join a women's circle, and I keep hearing things, and I haven't done anything about it yet.
This is your
Um,
sign.
well, this is it. Maybe here we go. Here's another little shove from the universe. That maybe that's something that I ought to do.
Yeah.
But certainly, I love creating that space for women. Find Your Happy, my
Mm.
coaching form, the resource is one of them, and the Reiki Hub is the other. So I was very aware that I would train people with Reiki, do the attunements, to go through level one, and then people are kind of left. And yes, you keep in touch a bit for a while,
Mm,
but most people, and I don't just mean my students, I know this kind of across a broader spectrum. Most people do Reiki one and then they never touch it again. And it just, yeah, it was lovely. It was wonderful. I felt transformed. And then I go off and back into the
mm,
real world. And I wanted to create a space where we could come together. We could talk all things Reiki. We could encourage people to practice their Reiki on a regular basis and keep their development going.
mm,
Um, and so I created the Reiki Hub. It's very small, but that's quite nice because it's this small, intimate group. And
mm,
again, we do an online session once a month. We do a Reiki share occasionally, and it's just a lovely space that feels safe. And sometimes it can be fun. Sometimes people can bare their soul
yeah,
as
yeah,
things come up for them.
yeah,
Because that's what Reiki does. Sometimes your Reiki treatment is calm and lovely and deeply relaxing, and other times, bang, something is released
yeah.
and it's transformative,
I'm sure.
often very emotional. Um, but being there to support people with that is a
Oh,
privilege,
fabulous.
I think.
Sounds like you're doing
Yeah.
really great work. So, do you
I
want to
hope so. Thank
do you
you.
want to tell us a bit about where people can find you then if they want to come and get some
Oh,
treatments, some services with you, websites, any
yeah,
programs that you're offering? I'll give you this time.
yeah.
We can
Oh,
cover
lovely.
that quickly
Thank
before
you.
we go.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. So my website is www.medulla.space. So that's do you have, you'll put it in the notes, will
I'll
you?
stick it all on the end of the
Sorry, yeah,
video and put it in
lovely.
the
Okay.
notes. Yeah, we can do that.
So I don't have to spell it out for you then,
Yeah.
because no one can ever spell medulla. So medulla.space. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and it's at medulla space. So quite easy to find me. And then
Fabulous.
from there, there's links to everything that I do. There's a booking site and
Okay. So
links
you're
to everything
offering
there.
reflexology, Reiki, anything else?
Reiki courses.
Hmm.
I do prescription aromatherapy as well. I don't make a big thing of that, but that's often I will make that for clients. If aromatherapy comes up, if we think that there's some oils that would help them, then I can make
Nice.
a potion. I love that.
Yes.
I love making my
Yeah,
potions
yeah.
for them to take away with them. And then, of course, the coaching portal, Find Your Happy,
Oh,
which
fabulous.
is just so, I'm so excited about that. I really am loving
That sounds
um,
great. Okay,
just
well
how well that's going out there.
yeah, brilliant. We can point people
Yeah,
towards that then.
thank you.
And you're
That would
based
be
in
lovely.
Bedfordshire, aren't you? You're based in
Yes, I'm North
Bedfordshire?
Bedfordshire.
Okay,
Yeah, North Bedfordshire, Thurley. So just
lovely.
north of Bedford.
All right,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So
Well, Anne,
easy to get to.
thank you so much for talking to me today.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Thank you so much for chatting with me. It's been
Yeah,
lovely. It's been a really interesting
yeah,
conversation. We've delved into some beautiful areas.
yeah.
And I've loved chatting with you. Thank you so much for having
Okay.
me onto your podcast.
No worries.